The Macabre World podcast is brought to you by Darker Art Studio, home of real human bone jewelry. Stock and custom pieces are available, so visit us on the web at www.darkerartstudio.com and show them your darker art side. Macabre World, a podcast from Darker Art Studio, where we explore the dark, strange, and unusual from this world and beyond. Hello and welcome to the Macabre World podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Degatti, and with me today is Ellie Lieberman, psychic medium. She is from BeGuidedByTheLight.com and coming to us from Charleston, South Carolina. You know, I am just too New England to say that, but Ellie, welcome. It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to sharing my experiences with you.
So do you refer to yourself as a psychic, a medium, a psychic medium? I'm not being funny. I mean, how do you market your services?
That is the question of questions, right? So
Sure.
This is like an umbrella. I could probably talk about that till you're blue in the face, but really most people, now that I've established myself over a decade, they associate me as a healer.
Okay.
But I would say that I'm a clairvoyant, claircognizant person. And so I am perceiving things that are not seen by the eye.
Well, I've heard the terms clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient,
Yes.
and I've always taken that clairvoyant were people that could see things either via vision or whatnot. Clairaudient were people that heard voices,
Yes.
i.e., like Joan of Arc, or
Correct.
Son of Sam, depending on
And
depends
on which way you go. Yeah.
And people who were clairsentient, were able to sense other things. So, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of facets to it. And I've always thought mediums specifically were literally conduits between our world and spirit world.
So break down the word. So this is what I tell people all the time, is that I did not want to acknowledge that this was happening. In fact, I don't think I really understood that was going on because of the way that I feel and experience spirit and messages. It is not a physical apparition for me. It's not like that. I see things kind of like a movie reel, or like a comic strip. And I can just take a deep breath and I see a mustache, or there's someone with certain things, or I see a certain particular piece of jewelry or something that is associated. That's my entry point.
Symbols and singular
Yeah, and
images.
I have no idea what is going on. I mean, I don't know what it means. So it takes a tremendous amount of courage to not filter that, because the brain, it wants to make excuses. It wants to make rationalizations of what they're experiencing. Any kind of doubt or anything can block your channel. So really, mediumship is to be in the middle. You're the conduit. You're the bridge. You're the bridge. So here I am, and I am just opening myself up for whatever wants to come through, with certain limitations.
Certainly. Well, there's some psychic self-defense I think we all should practice,
exactly.
actually.
Yeah, I mean, being a medium is something that has developed later in my life. My main access point was cards. I have a degree in art, and I love art history. And so when I picked up cards, I could read.
We're all about art here, so here's to you.
Man, I could talk art to the day I pass. It's literally part of my vibration as a person. It's since I was a child. So truly, I'm an artist who sees things more than anything. Mostly what happened is that people would start to ask me, can you do this? Can you be a medium? And I literally was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. So I still feel that way. I still question my abilities. Everyone taps in different ways. I mean, you can really, people that you see on TV that are picking people out of the crowd. I think that's amazing. There's a couple of really good mediums up north where I lived. A year ago, there's a woman, her name's Deanna Fitzpatrick. She does that on stage, but small. You look in Delaware, Maryland, that kind of area. So, but I don't access like that. I'm different. I like to see a picture, or if I hear initials, like I'm like, what are the initials of the person that's passed? And I can just immediately tell you. So that's just my process. I guess. Hopefully that answers. I'm long-winded.
No, that's all right. There's a whole bunch of people who actually know me personally that are saying, "Thank God somebody shut her up." So I totally feel
I
that.
hear that. Yeah.
But it's because well, let's talk about some of the shows, because I
Yeah.
think that what people see on TV now, I mean, I go back to the medium slash psychic. Let's look at it like, in more popular culture. We had some of those like fun movies in the 50s, like your bed knobs and broomsticks, and that was your
Totally.
witchy thing. And then, we had Samantha in the 60s, and
Yes.
and all that sort of stuff. And that was, yeah, Endora, by the way, is my spirit animal. She's fantastic. I know.
Goals as it
Oh
goals.
yeah. Hello, dum dum. I just love the way she did greet. Hello, dum dum. And so we saw that, and then we got into, I remember Return to Witch Mountain when I was a kid, because
Oh my
there's,
gosh,
there's there's a
yes.
little generational gap between us, but some of these things are timeless. So and
Absolutely.
it
And I'm
goes, and I
obsessed
think
with this
your
stuff.
generation had Sabrina,
It was. I mean, Sabrina, Salem,
who's
I
your
love
Samantha.
Salem's my spirit animal, like that's where
Right. And then
yeah.
there was, what is it, Charmed or something, so
Yeah.
there's been lots of TV fictional representations
Mhm.
that are quite dramatic, of
Yes.
either people with supernatural power,
Totally.
or psychic power, or
I
mediums.
mean, Ghost. Look at Ghost, right? So
Sure.
Ghost
Oh
acknowledges
God,
the
I
the
love that. Whoopi
the you
Goldberg was
acknowledges
fantastic.
the fake one that is taking people's money, and then all of a sudden she gets gifted, and that you see that change. I mean, that was really a marker, in my opinion. This is my opinion,
uh
of when you started to see things shift, because around that time you started to see the talk shows
right.
acknowledged.
I want to say the first psychic medium that I remember, not to be confused with a mentalist. A mentalist is an entirely
Yes.
is not a spiritualistic. Like the amazing Kreskin is a mentalist.
Yes.
He's a mind reader, and there are methods, scientific methods to what he does.
Yes.
And I actually put in, if anybody out there knows the amazing Kreskin, I actually put in to have him on the show.
That would be amazing. I would listen in
It
five
would be an
seconds.
honor, because
Yeah, I
he is
mean,
pretty much the
th-
father of mentalism
there
in the
is a
modern
tactic there,
entertainment.
it's the
Right.
military. There's a lot of things that are acknowledged scientifically there, for
Sure.
sure.
And there's a lot of psychology to it, and there's things like Barnum statements and whatnot. There's a lot of ways to do it. And so, separating the mentalism from there are now, once it started on the talk shows, I remember like early on seeing like, the Sylvia Brown folks, and then
Yeah.
it went on to, and of course, my, I'm not Spanish speaking Latin, my mom's Portuguese, but we got all the Spanish channels, and we loved Walter Mercado. We saw,
I
oh, he
love
was
him.
fantastic.
That is an
Love that
icon
man.
right there. If you
Sure.
guys, there was a great documentary written
Yes.
about him that I highly recommend that you watch, because you
When
see
Lin
his
Manuel
purpose.
Miranda came on and talked about his
Yes.
experience, I was almost in tears, because he was so sincere. What a beautiful man. And there's, so, and that's another thing. In some cultures, it's more mainstream than others.
Absolutely.
In my, the Portuguese and some of the Latin folks that I've met, they're very superstitious. Old world Europeans could be very superstitious, and they can
Absolutely.
feel very, very spiritual. And there's a lot of folk magic involved in what they do. Everybody's,
Yes.
my grandmother used to, heal a sty by singing a song and pretending she was sewing your eye, and that worked. It was,
Listen,
there's all kinds of crazy stuff.
it's real. Yeah.
So when these shows come out now, it went from the occasional talk show appearance. It ended up like the Dr. Phil thing. He was on a talk show twice. Boom, he's got a show. So
True.
now, and 100 years later, we're still watching him. So now we have John Edward. We have
Teresa Caputo. You got the Long Island
the
Medium.
Long Island Medium.
Tyler Henry.
Right, Tyler, the younger fella.
There's a new guy. I think his name is Mark something. I can't remember his name. I'll have to give it to you. He's new on the scene too. Really making headway. One of the things that you see is their characters.
Yes.
They're these characters. They're not in all the way through, even portrayed in the media prior to it being considered real, right? Like just placating on the idea of it. They're
Right.
characters. They're these extreme characters.
They have to be larger than life. Well, I got news. You're a bit of a character, Ellie. I don't know how to
I'm
tell you
not,
this.
I'm not,
You kind of
I'm
fit
an
into this. You're
I'm an
something of a
extremely
character.
eccentric human being. So I
Right.
would
You
say
know,
that I am definitely a character. You can't really avoid me. Like
no,
my
yeah,
presence is known. So what I think that there's a part of me that related to that, you know, like really was like, oh my gosh. But I would say that like John Edwards was the most quote unquote normal, regular, like seemingly regular, fitting into the mold person. So I think that there was an access point there for people in relatability. And he's, you know, deeply Christian. And
right.
there was that acknowledgement as a Christian man being able to talk to the other side that really, I think, kind of broke things open in a lot of ways.
Now, I'll be honest with you without naming names or speculating, but I think that all of the people that I've seen on TV that have done medium programs have talent.
Yes.
Some of them I think are amazing actors. Some of them I think are very gifted comedians and very funny. Yes. And I think there's a lot of talent there. And some of them I think are talented mentalists. Now,
yeah.
I don't know that every single one of them I believe is truly gifted with the sight to the other side of the
sure.
with connection, but I think there's talent there. Do you think 100% of them are making connections to the other side?
I think every single human being on this planet is making a connection to the other side. I just don't know.
I mean, on some of these episodes, I have watched episodes of some random shows and some random medium, and I've seen what I consider to be obvious mentalism tactics.
Yeah. I think,
and I don't think that had anything. Now, are they helping the person despite using these tactics? They may be.
Do you know what you want to know what I really think? I'll be honest.
Oh yeah.
I think that you're gifted. Okay. I think that there's that talent that you're talking about, that it's there, you know, it's really genuinely there, but something happens with ego when you start to get known that blocks your gifts. I truly feel that way. I think that there is something that happens. It's almost like an energy thing. Like you don't want to violate the preciousness of the gift that you have, and you're meant to do this, right? The really, really, really good readers, like genuine psychic people that I know, they live on a mountain in the middle of freaking nowhere. You know, they don't like people. They don't want to, they don't like society. They're very sensitive people. They're really deep in their spiritual practices, and they don't want to get interrupted. So there's a reason for that. And it's because it's dangerous out there with contracts and money and travel and fame. It feeds your ego. And I think that that's honestly what can genuinely block a talent from blooming. And that's what I think. Do I think I'm not them? So I'm not going to say whether or not 100% someone is something or not. What I can say is though, on the lovely world of TikTok, that there is a beautiful thing happening that validates me, which is that you see a ton of people who think that they can pick up a deck and they're psychic. And you can pick it up. You can see the difference if you've had a real reading before, and you can see the difference. And so I think that is going to change the game a little bit, because you're not going to make it very far. The real ones are going to thrive here because outcomes, it's all based on outcomes. When you do something on a camera that public, I don't know. I feel like it sounds like the message.
And I can see your point where it's sort of like it started out with good intentions, but then the pressure, and I think there's also a lot of pressure to deliver and to perform.
Absolutely.
And it becomes, and as the more popular you get, the more intense that pressure gets.
I feel pressure, and I'm not even in that world. That's not what I'm seeking at this time. So I understand that. I think that, okay, I didn't think I was going to say this. Okay, I'm going to say this. So personally, there are patterns. And when when you are really tapped in like that, and you are opening up your field like that, you put yourself at risk as the medium. Okay. There's a lot of things that can happen to you if you are not careful and you're not aware and you don't pay attention and you're not seasoned and you're not trained, which is what you see happen a lot. People go dark. Okay.
Yes.
They get taken advantage of.
Right.
Uh,
Or they begin to take
addiction.
advantage of others.
Oh, right. Because it's like you absorb it. That's the best way. You become what you're around. So when you're doing it like that over and over and over again, and there's these expectations like you were talking about and that pressure, I don't know how real you can be. What is that? How can you grow? What are you really doing for people? Because I believe that true mediumship is to help bridge the gap, not to prove that we're real. There is absolutely, I'm not a parlor trick, okay?
Right.
Like, that's not how this works. And so when it gets exposed like that and presented like that, it does become a parlor trick, right? It's the neon light psychic
It's on
down
demand.
the road. Yeah, it's
Literally
right.
and figuratively.
And so you create these false perceptions, like you were talking about how people perceive or think what's going to walk in the door. For example, I get hired and I'm going to do a small group and they don't know who I am. They found me on some lead site. Okay. It's not even word of mouth. And they think Miss Cleo is going to walk in the door.
Oh my.
And 1-800 blah blah blah, that was a huge part of the world too, which is the $1.99 a minute psychic
Friends network.
Yeah, all of that.
I remember
and
the
so
commercials.
That's the same timing as we've got all this stuff coming out. So they literally think I'm going to come, and I'm just like this regular person with a bunch of tattoos and really loud and really nice, and they are not expecting that. That right there says a lot about how we perceive as a culture, just as Americans, at least here. What we're seeing, what we're expecting, breaking that mold, I think, is the key. How to do it, I don't know. But
has the stereotype and the expectation created by the media, both fiction and nonfiction, has that helped or hurt? Yes.
Tough question. You're getting me. I think that it depends on who you are. For me, I have seen an absolutely huge like influx in clientele in their demographic in the last few years, especially post-pandemic. During pandemic, people had existential crises. I mean, they were literally, some people asked me if the world was going to end. I mean, seriously.
Well, it was like the bubonic plague of this time.
Correct. I mean, they literally were terrified on a really real level. And so that'll change a person. And it will
I think
open
a lot
you.
of people were bored out of their minds too.
And they were seeking,
they were
and
looking
they were on
for
the
things
internet.
to do.
So you have this like flash flood of, how do I become a better person? And that enter the new age scene. Okay, so you've got like the new age culture, which is saying law of attraction, metaphysics, crystals, Reiki, that kind of thing. I am that I am, right? That whole mindfulness thing. That is completely different than mediumship. That is an absolutely different world. So
just clarifying, I am that I am, or I am what I am?
Both.
Oh, because one's Popeye.
Well, I prefer Popeye every day.
I was just gonna say,
I am what I am. I mean,
I like the idea. Yeah,
it depends. Well,
I am what I am.
Yeah. I am what I am. Listen, I'm gonna make you a shirt, and then you. so.
Well, I read cards, and I have a small clientele myself, and at one time it grew a little bit bigger, and I have to admit I like it smaller.
Me too.
I like it smaller. It was.
Why? I mean, is it because of the same things that I'm saying? Is there's
it gets to the point where I like the intimacy of it. I like my regulars. Not that I don't. Of course, but I'm pickier in the sense that I don't take every event. I don't take every everything. You got to pick and choose, because it's not just what they can do for you. It's what you can do for them, and make sure it's a good fit.
This is what I'm saying is like, it's not. I am not a parlor trick. I'm not here to show the skeptic that it's real. I am genuinely here to heal. And so there's a difference there. I want to help. You know,
Right.
of course, when I do
Same.
and there's results and I don't have to ever give a refund, never have had to, I'm grateful for that, you know, and I hope I never have to. That will, of course, inspire someone. You know, when you've never had a profound spiritual experience and then you have one, that's going to change you. That's going to change you.
It changes who you are.
The play on grief, the question that I get is a lot, and I think you'll appreciate this, especially with mediumship. How can you play on someone's pain? How dare you take advantage of someone in pain?
I personally don't possess the gift of mediumship, so
Yeah.
I can't relate. I have had people who have come to me as clients for card reading, and when they've lost someone, and it's more of, you know, I'm more of an interpreter. I go more into the counseling. I often suggest they seek professional counselors
Absolutely
to work through some of the what I'll call the harder edges of grief.
Yeah, I mean,
and sometimes I've had someone tell me, you know, I went to this person and this person charged me a lot of money and made me a candle and told me I have to pay X
they
$100.
get swindled. This is what I'm
Right.
talking about, is the swindling. So let's enter the scene. Old school caravans, the caravan
The
cruise.
snake oil.
Okay, it's Wizard of Oz. Oz coming and saying, Dorothy, close your eyes, you know, and he peeks in her basket and sees a picture and it, you know, and is just swindling her. You know, the thing is, though, is that is will always put a damper on the community, because people do that. They do that. There are people who will hurt you and play on your grief.
Sure.
A true medium, someone who's genuinely here for it, they are going to help you through your grief. They're not going to
charge you for your time,
it's the time. It's
and it's not going to compound.
Listen, for
some people get out there,
$3,000,
they get crazy with trinkets.
For $3,000, no one's going to be able to remove the dark cloud over your head. You know what I
No.
mean? It's not. That's different. You know what I mean? That's not how this works. There are a lot of things that have happened that require answers that we don't get before someone passes. And sometimes we need that closure, and even to move on as our own souls. But what people don't understand is that energy is infinite. The soul doesn't die. It goes somewhere else. Energy cannot be destroyed or created. It has to become something else.
I've quoted that exact quote because Albert Einstein said it. Because, you know, if people don't want to get their information from, like, you know, a psychic, get it from a scientist.
I'm an energy person.
Right.
That's really what. So let's talk about that, because I'm still a person. I'm still a human being having a very human experience. I just have had a lot of stuff happen that I could not explain, that was connected to the next person I was going to meet.
When did you first realize you had a connection that was a little different, or was a little more, or a little unusual? Like when you were a kid, something weird happened?
Yeah, I mean, there were things like, okay, so like I was a child. Now, granted, I'm lucky, okay? My mom is accepting, and my dad just was like, yeah, whatever, not everything means something. You guys are crazy. You know what I mean? And went in the kitchen and did whatever he did. So, you know, but it wasn't pushed away. I wasn't told I'm not this. This is not something that was ever really doubted. The only, excuse me, of course, it's probably my grandmother, like, don't say that, as I choke. So, the thing is I doubted myself. And so it was my own doubt. Hindsight's 2020. So realization in the moment is very different than realizing when it's been happening.
Right.
So when it's been happening, if I asked my mother, like, do you remember seeing me as a kid? I've asked her that question. She said I was about 2.5 years old, and she was pregnant with my brother, my younger brother, and she was doing this cross stitch on the couch, and she was watching Wheel of Fortune. And I walked up, pointed to the screen and said, give me a tea. And the guy goes, I want a tea. And Pat Sajak says, 7 teas. Yeah. So like that's the genuine, like that's the first account. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that it's flourish. What is that? I don't know. I don't know if that was spirit telling me. That's genuinely me just being a kid, super perceptive. Was I
Right.
guessing? I don't know. I
Do you
wasn't.
think, speaking of kids, do you think most kids have psychic ability and we just get
Yes.
it jaded out of us as we get older?
Absolutely. Like I was saying in the beginning, like I believe wholeheartedly, to my understanding, that we are all capable of connection with each other and on the other side, which is why mentalism exists. This is why we have deja vu. This is why we think about somebody and then they call. Okay.
Right.
This is why you are in France and your friend from high school in California, you run into them on your trip and you're like, what? Like, how
Well,
did
we have
that
lots of
happen?
words for it. We have kismet, we have deja vu. There's lots of
Serendipity,
serendipity,
synchronicities, like, so it's there. I think we get jaded
or in
because
my
of
life, chaos
control.
and cataclysm, but that's
Yeah,
just
well,
me.
also that, don't even get me started. I mean, my life wasn't peachy. It was very hard to experience chatter that I didn't understand was what was really going on. Now, truly, my most profound spiritual medium experience was when my client passed away last year, and it catapulted me. It's a really wonderful story. I think you'll appreciate it. I think everybody will here will. I had a client who I had read his mother, his dad, his father, his two sisters, and spouses of them, and for years. And I'd go to their house. They'll be okay if I say it, with to the White family's house. I go to the White House, okay? And I just love this family so much, and I'd help them. I'd read every one of them. And unfortunately, last year in March, he Nick died in a really tragic car accident. He's 24 years old, killed his girlfriend, and killed his teammate in the back seat. And the car had a fire. So the autopsy was just like, it was like impossible to really
Right.
figure out what was going on. And it's truly been the most profound experience that I've ever had, because there's a direct connection in a really unique way. And when I say that I've never been more moved in my life by spirit, I have never been more moved in my life by spirit. And I can't prove that to anybody. You have to be there. But this really changed me as a person. Um, he visited me in a dream. I'm not a dreamer. That's not normally how I see things. There was an entry point that I wasn't familiar with, that
Right.
had happened. And he was like, I want you to help my family grieve. And at this point, I didn't really understand like what he was saying. Like, I don't know what you mean. And just I just kept showing up, and I never charged them again, and I never will.
Right.
And I just kept showing up. And let me tell you, his memorial service, people flew from everywhere. They're a family that traveled a lot because of the father's work. And I met all of his friends like that he'd known, and nobody said that I was a psychic, because it's weird to go to a memorial and you're the family psychic, okay? Like, you don't, like, that's awkward. And somehow people figured it out. And these people were telling me these stories about how he would come to them in a dream. And it started to really confirm a lot of my pattern and a lot of the things that were
Right.
happening with me. um i've got I've got physical proof. I mean, I have a ton of it now, where he messed with lights, and the channel will be happening and things will show up. I've got one of his sister's friends. I'm mentoring her, and I said, if you really want to go there, use Nick as your guide. He's going to protect you. And she said, I'm so mad, like I feel like I'm not getting any signs. And I said, just relax and just let it go. And somebody that she went to go hang out with, it was cold outside, pulled a blanket out of the back seat of the car, and it just happened to be the angels, which is what his bedroom was
Uh,
decked out in. And they're in Pennsylvania. So to be a Los Angeles Angels fan in Pennsylvania was just it's just too much. So that's truly my true connection. I think for me, it needed to happen in a way that I was close. I knew the person alive, and
Right.
then I knew them pass. And now it's just been just on fire. It's just been on fire since.
I'm sorry that happened to your
Thank
friend.
you. Yeah,
I am,
no,
truly.
it's a beautiful, thank you. What I do want to say is that I learned so much about the power of the other side and how much a spirit can do even when they're not here, and the value that that has and the impact that that has on a person's life and the people around them, and you live in their legacy, can be extremely empowering. No one should ever lose their child. This is just the worst thing. I could never intend that, and I have a lot of respect. It showed me a different way, right? Makes sense. So love you, Nick. Yeah.
And it's funny. I think one of the I lived in a community where we had a tragedy where we lost a very young person when I was younger. And one of the things that was said by one of the adults in the room, because I was a kid, was that it was unnatural for a parent to bury a child. And I
Well
think
said.
that stuck with me for many, many years.
Yes.
That it
Well
was
said. I mean,
unnatural.
it's not how we live our life in a cycle. So unnatural is very true,
Yeah.
but it happens, and it's a taboo topic, but it really does happen, like many other things. What it has done is it's allowed me to speak about it, and
Right.
open up a place. That is the other side of things, Rocky, is that when you see these shows, it does open up a conversation that just wasn't there before.
True.
And that is a really good thing. That does not hinder my business.
And it brings it into the mainstream because
it's important.
The only thing is, the people expect now, like on some of the shows, people are just randomly in the deli line, and
that happens to me.
They have to. You just got to give somebody a message.
Okay, so like that happens to me. Okay. So this is also here. Okay, how about I'm going to use this again. Thank you, whoever's giving me this information. Okay, so I used to, when I started my journey, just even realizing I'm a psychic person, I couldn't go to the grocery store without people telling me their whole freaking life. Right. And I'd be like, I just want to buy bananas. Like, this is really crazy. What would be a 15-minute encounter would turn into an hour and a half, and I'd have all these deep, profound things to say to them. And I'm so young at that time. I really didn't understand what I was saying. I was channeling. Who and what and where I was channeling from, I'm not sure. The awareness has definitely helped me figure that out more. But it's like that. I've had encounters where I remember it was Christmas. I was leaving my uncle's house, and I was so glad somebody gave me $100 so I could get gas. It was like one of those moments.
Right.
And it was my last Christmas with my mom's mom. And I was at the gas station, and this guy pulls up, and he's got a pizza in the front seat of his like Rolls Royce, okay, LA, okay, circa 2000 something. And I'm like, it's Christmas, and he's in his Rolls Royce, and there's pizza in the front seat. Like, that's weird, like maybe he's Jewish. I don't know, like what is happening, right? Going through my head.
No, if he was Jewish, it would be Chinese food.
True. Well, they'd be there still.
On Christmas, yes.
Eating, right? So, yes. So, long story
that was
short,
a thing.
It is. It really is. And he gets out of the car, and he's just like this really attractive Black guy. And I'm like sitting there in my front seat, and I'm like, no, not on Christmas. Spirit, please don't make me do this on Christmas. And I like stall, like I just stall. And I waited for him to go in the gas station. I waited him to come out, and I was like, okay, here we go. Because you get convicted. Like, there's a compelling, something comes over you and you can't let it go.
And they can be pushy.
Over. They all are. It's annoying. Even the shy ones they're still there. They're pushy. You know what I mean? They still,
I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't have any shy ones.
No.
I got a crowd.
Well, you are surrounded. You know what I mean? Like, and to know that and to be comfortable with that is extremely empowering. So, long story short, I was like, excuse me, sir. I was like, I'm a psychic for a living, and I'm really sorry. No, it's Christmas, blah, blah, blah. And he just put his hand out, and he was like, well, hello, young lady. Like, spirit, no spirit, out with it. was just like,
Wow.
oh my God. I was like, thank God, because that could have been a dangerous encounter for me. Like, you never know how people are going to
That's
react to
true.
those kinds of things. So I'm glad I'm a bold person. I'm glad I'm an outgoing person, because I couldn't see it any other way. I couldn't imagine it. Let me tell you, uh, definitely a known person that I was talking to, didn't know who I was talking to at the time. And everything that I said was accurate. And it wasn't about spirit, it was about a business deal, a big time
Okay.
business deal. And so
I'm just gonna ask for the ballpark. Are we talking a Hollywood type person or a sports type person?
Hollywood,
Okay, cool.
um, um, music.
Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah, and I was like the coolest. Like, he gave me his card. He was like, "I'll let you know what happens." He ended up inviting me to his beautiful home and had me
Nice.
read him and talk to him again. And the business deal that he had, he he made it in front of me.
Oh, wow. Very
And
cool.
I was like, well, that's not any pressure. Then that's, I'm like, and everything unfolded beautifully. You know what I mean? It was such a wonderful encounter. So when you do that and you're brave and you just push it and you follow that, I really have not had a bad encounter. I genuinely have had success.
But
People get
sometimes it's
uncomfortable.
compelling. It's like, even if someone isn't seeking you out for if you're in the present and in the moment, and spirit says you need to tell them this.
I don't have a choice. I probably would have turned around and tried to find him at the gas station again or something if I didn't do it.
Right. It would bother
And
you.
that's,
You
I think
chase it.
that starts to, when that starts to happen, you just know better, because it's going to really sit with you, and that's just not a good feeling, and you don't live with that, because there's been times where I haven't spoken about things and I've regretted it. I've really genuinely regretted it and wished I could have and should have. So follow it, I guess. Hopefully that answers your
Yes,
question.
absolutely. One thing I wanted to talk about, which isn't necessarily in your line of thing, I've always found it interesting. Like when you talk to somebody, like I'll hear, so, well, I'm going to go see a medium. Why? Because I want to talk to Uncle Fred. Because
Yes.
Uncle Fred hid money somewhere, or I want to
Oh
talk to
yeah.
Auntie so and so, because, or just because I had somebody close to me specific. They want specifics. And so, is it fairly common that people come to you and it's not that they just want messages from they want to talk to somebody, but they want to dial them up, like you
$100%.
phone book, and you
Yeah.
Google them up, and
Hmm.
boom, and then
Do you know what I say?
what?
I'm not a vending machine. Sorry. You can't play E6,
And they'll
but
arrest you if you try to put a coin in that slot. But
correct. But you can. Yes, they do that. But I find, for me, if you show me a picture of somebody, I've got it. I've got it 100%. I can get it, but it's usually, I've never had the question of where'd they hide the money. I've usually had the, like, what secrets did they pass with, and was I adopted, or is my
right.
father really my father?
Well, 23andMe can clear that one up right
Well,
away.
that's what I say.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what I mean? The thing is, or the why did they lie to me thing that happens, it's the unsolved.
Right. Have you ever
Yeah.
channeled a famous person? Not for a famous person, like you mentioned, but have you ever had a famous spirit encounter?
No, not yet. I would be 100% open to that
I think
experience.
you, me, and a bottle of Southern Comfort should go hang out at the
Let's
Chateau
go.
Marmont and see what happens.
Listen, I'm so ready, and I have plugs in LA. We should go. Come
Yeah,
down.
I want to
I'm
hit the
so
Chateau
down.
anyway, because that's like
Yeah,
a legend.
the
Well, the
no,
reason I
would I
ask,
be open?
well,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, but well, here's the reason I ask, and I thought this was a very interesting premise. Earlier in season one, I
Mhm.
had a lovely woman named Suzanne Munson on the show, and she is a Jeffersonian scholar.
Mm.
And she wrote a book called The Metaphysical Thomas Jefferson. Through her journey of her own grief, of becoming a widow, she contacted a medium, and she felt that the medium made true connection and helped her with her grief. And so she said the medium knew things about her relationship and her husband
Mhm.
that couldn't been known outside. So she felt she had found someone who
Oh
who
yeah.
who tapped right in. And then she said, I wondered if I could talk to my husband that way. Could I talk to someone else who was
Ooh.
dead, and and then And it turns out that she, through a series of sessions, she asked other scholars for what, you know, if Thomas Jefferson was alive, what would you ask him today?
Right.
And so, you know, if you catch, I think it says season 1, episode 4.
I will love that.
Yeah, it's and what she did was she wrote a book called The Metaphysical Thomas Jefferson, which is a transcription of the questions that she and other scholars gathered, and she asked them through the medium and the answers that came through as Thomas Jefferson. Whether folks want to, you know, take that leap of faith or not,
They're
it was,
probably
I
very
think, an
profound.
incredibly interesting premise of
I
how
love
do we
this idea.
yes, that's why I wanted to talk about it. What if we could, you know, like,
I'd be down.
yeah. I mean, did
What
Jim
would you ask?
did
What would
Jim
be the
Morrison really die from a heroin overdose?
these are the questions. So well, these are the things at play, because how do you prove 100% that that person is coming through? You would have to have somebody who is related with a genuine secret being able to validate something to say that that person is coming through. That's the only way to truly validate, at
Well,
least
in this case, you know, a Jeffersonian scholar would know his
backgrounds and the ins and outs that the average person
vetted her.
wouldn't. Yeah, of course, of
But
course. I'm
you're right.
saying
You
that
would need some kind of
you'd have to have somebody who was the scholar that would know only all the details of certain things, and have someone that you knew for sure wouldn't know, right? But do I think that that's interesting? Yes. Do I think people should do that? I would love to try. Absolutely. I think that there is a important connection with the people who've impacted the world that could answer some things.
Oh yeah.
Morally, I don't know. My ethics are open. You know, I don't know what that is. Is it playing God? You know, these are the questions that come up when that happens. If you remove all of that, I would say definitely go for it. I that would be interesting. I'd love to know.
Well, I think ethically, for me, I think the idea of the especially the metaphysical history, I think that's fantastic. The idea of getting a perspective of historical persons or events who have, you know, who obviously are history. You know, I would love to hear a lot of things. I would love to hear what Leonardo da Vinci thinks about
this is what I was
saying,
saying.
you know,
Is how did you figure out, you know, where was your access point, Da Vinci? Like, how did those things come to you? Did you dream them? Did you think them?
What do you think he thinks now when he sees a Huey go by? Because that kind of was his idea.
I think that he probably is trying to correct it.
Right. That sounds about right. From everything I know, yeah, he's in there.
I think he'd be like, he's probably drawing plans.
It's all wrong. It's all wrong.
Right, drawing plans, trying to convey that message to somebody.
It's a too top heavy, you know.
Yes.
And I could, don't write me letters, folks. I can do that. I'm Italian. Well, half Italian, Sicilian actually. But anyway. So yeah, I mean, there's now that I think as a society, and we've discussed that we're sort of opening up more to this type of thing. I think that that's going to lend itself, and I loved her idea on the metaphysical history, and I think that's going to lend itself, and I think that that's like a whole new area to explore.
Well, you're putting a value that is of education and research and information that maybe isn't there in our community yet, right? It's not really been tapped into yet. There's a lot of things that are starting to unfold in the metaphysical community that is also bridging gaps with science as well. So that's also opening up. I mean, quantum physics has made huge leaps in the last, decade. So
I have often said, and I'm watching, and I think I said this, I had Dan Sturgis from Paranormal Caught on Camera on, and he and I were talking, and I said, when we talk about things like residual hauntings, and when we talk about some of these things, I said, somewhere in the back of my head, I'm going to go back to Einstein and quantum theory. I think this has a lot more to do with space and time than good and evil.
Me too. And we just think it. We don't know it. Theoretically.
I couldn't explain quantum physics if you know.
I mean, if you think about, you could go into the whole mentalist aspect of things. What are they tapping into? What is that?
I think it has more to do with space and time, with continuum physics, than how time imprints. I think it has to do with things like rifts and portals and
We're
stuff like
talking
that.
about wavelengths, vibrations, and
Correct.
frequencies that create all kinds of environments that can harness all kinds of different things. Really, the access point, if anybody's interested in quantum physics, is to study crystals. Once you study crystals and you understand how crystals work and how crystals actually hold information, like if you have a non-digital watch, it has a quartz crystal in it.
Correct.
Newsflash. You start to realize how much of our technology, has as she's wearing one right now. So there
Yes,
we
I
go.
am.
It's important. I can feel that. So that being an access point is relatable. It's close enough to us. It's in front of us enough now in society for us to go, okay. And you go on that journey. If you're interested in quantum physics, Dr. Quantum, it's like quantum physics for a fifth grader. It breaks it down so that like the average person can understand some of the stuff. Highly recommend. You go there and you're going to still find yourself in metaphysics. I guarantee it. If you go down the quantum physics world, you will find yourself in the metaphysical world as well. Why? Because we're mediums.
I get that. Yeah. So if folks want to book a reading with you, you do them, I assume, by phone, by Zoom, by, so don't let geography be your prison.
I have people global. You just go to beguidedbythelight.com and you click the little book now button. And you've got that's my tag on all the socials as well. And you can come check me out. I'd be honored. Anybody, if you drop this podcast name or you tell me that it was Rocky, I'll give you $10 off because
awesome sauce.
I love you. Yeah. And if you really truly like I have a medium gig on Saturday, those are far more better in person. I recommend it. So if you're in the Charleston area and that's something that you want to do, recommend it in person. But as you know from our mutual contact, I can do that over the phone as well. But in person, I suggest. But if you're looking for spiritual guidance or healing, or if you feel like you are gifted in any way and need to figure that out, I'm that person for you.
So once again, beguidedbythelight.com. And that's also your handle on Facebook, Instagram, and all
TikTok.
That stuff. And TikTok. I always forget TikTok.
I know. Well, and it's one of those weird ones you're not really sure you want to get into right away when you're into this stuff.
I'm starting to turn into my mom. I start calling it like the internets. And I don't know about that TikTok. I'm not getting on that. But so beguidedbythelight.com and get yourself a reading with Ellie. She is a delight, and I mean delight with L-I-G-H-T. Delight.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Always
I
room
appreciate
for
it.
Ellie, final on a parting note, what do we all need to know?
That everything is really going to be okay.
Thank you so much for that.
It's the truth.
And thank you all for listening. And remember, stay kooky out there.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Macabre World. You can find us on the web at www.darkerartsstudio.com.